Alright, so April is almost to a close. It is currently April 29th today, and I got a bunch of April reviews. Obviously, I'm going to have my April movies ranking where I'm going to include all these, but I haven't gone full reviews for movies like Civil War, Abigail, what's the other ones? Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. So today, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to give you my 4 reviews. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, so bear with me just a little bit. I'm going to try to do timestamps, so if you want to see a specific review out of all these, go ahead and skip to them. We're not going to waste any more time. Make sure to subscribe, like button, hit the bell, and comment down below what is your thoughts on all these movies. And with that said, we are first going to talk about Alex Garland's Civil War. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I thought the trailer was phenomenal, and I thought the movie was solid. It's a good movie. I think it's currently in my top 10 of the year. It's number 6 right now. I think it was good. It's a good movie. My favorite thing about this movie was that it didn't choose a side. I know there's all the internet lab rats that are always like, no, he didn't choose a side, so it's just, oh, I hate it now. No. Because it doesn't matter what side they chose in a Civil War, they're always going to piss people off. So they decided to explore it through photography and journalism, which is one of the coolest things that I think they could have done here. Because it shows journalism side of a Civil War. And it was very interesting. I was interested the entire movie. I thought it did that in a very, very, very good sense, to where it made a way to show the story without making people angry. Of course, there's always going to be the angry people, but like, that was the best part about the movie by far. Kirsten Dunst is great in the movie. Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spanley, Stephen McKinley. Everybody was pretty great in this movie as well. But this big standout was Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons was one scene, and that's the most tense theater experience this year. I absolutely adored that scene. Like, I was at the edge of my seat through that entire scene, because it's just, again, showing what a Civil War could be like, and it's coming. A Civil War is coming, guys. And so I don't think it's going to be like this movie, but not to get political, it will be here. I promise you that. One way or another in America's history. So, showing this guy who's just like, what kind of American are you? What state are you from? Showing how the world's getting divided, how America is getting divided. And his scene was just so good. Apparently he wasn't even cast in the scene. He was just like, Kirsten Dunst is like, hey, I know that other guy quit, you can come along. And that's exactly what happened. And he did great. Like, that was the most tense theater experience that I've had all year so far. That was great. The visuals, very good. The sound is awesome when there's a gunshot. I genuinely was scared when there's a gunshot. I didn't see this in like a big theater. I just saw it in my normal AMC theater that is like the weakest theater by far that I go to, and the sound was just very good. Every time there was a gunshot, I was scared. I was genuinely scared. It sounded like a real gunshot. Everything about that was great. The visuals, really good as well. Overall, there's also a kind of emotional thing when people die and shows friendships, and there's like this huge thing when a character dies, and it's kind of sad in that sense too. So overall, I think it's a really good movie. I do have issues with it. We're going to talk about those now. More as we enter into the third act. Those are more where my issues start landing. The final, I think, 20 minutes are great. I really do. When you go in to try to kill the president, and just, it's visually great. It's just really cool looking. It's pretty good. I was really immersed. But the thing where I have my issues with is where the movie exactly ended. Where the movie exactly ended was like, Kirsten Dunst gets shot, she's dead, they walk in the room, take a picture of the dead president, and the movie's over. I sat back, I was like, there's supposed to be 5, 6, 7 more minutes left of this movie, and it just kind of abruptly ended. And so when I walked out of the theater, I kind of had a sour taste in my mouth, like, that's how it ends? Okay, that wasn't a very satisfying ending to the movie. Also, the movie, like I mentioned, doesn't take a side. For me, that's a positive. Gotta mention it, because if you want to check out this movie and you're one of those little girls, oh, the movie doesn't take a side, Alex Garland is a horrible director, then this movie's not going to be for you. And you can go ahead and unsubscribe. You can go ahead and leave, because I just called you a little girl. But This movie's not going to be for you if you don't like that it doesn't take a side. I think it's done perfectly, but I obviously have to agree with some people that it wouldn't be for them. Another thing here, they don't really explain how the war happened. If you're going into this movie wanting to know why there's a civil war going on, it's not going to explain it to you. It's a movie about journalism and explaining what's happening during the war. Doesn't set anything up. And I kind of left the theater like, I wish they explained it, but it didn't really notch down my score. Like, the big negative was the final 5 minutes of the movie just left a sour taste in my mouth. But overall, I think Civil War is a very solid movie. I'm going to give Alex Garland's Civil War a B+. I'm going to have an Alex Garland ranking coming up. I still haven't checked out Annihilation, but that will be a video coming very, very, very soon. Now we're going to talk about Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. I hated the first Rebel Moon so much, I didn't even make a video for it. Like, that's how much I hated the movie. Because, like, it's just so bad. There's so many things that could have been interesting, and it's just so weak. And also, because it was in the year and I was getting a lot of busy stuff happening on my channel. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver is fine. I'm gonna say it's fine. Now, it's going to be hard talking about this one, because if people are watching, I'm going to have either the people that aren't Zack Snyder fans, you're a Zack Snyder fan! How could you? You only like this movie because you like Zack Snyder! Yeah, I like Zack Snyder. I think he's a fine director. Let me look at his filmography here. I like a couple things that he's done. I like Batman v Superman. I love his Justice League movie. Army of the Dead is really fun. Dawn of the Dead is very good as well. I think he's overall a solid director. But people are always just so like, you only like this movie because it's Zack Snyder. No, I liked the movie because it was not boring and uninteresting. I thought it was kind of surprising by that it's actually not the worst movie. I don't think it's necessarily good, but I don't think it's the worst movie. Or if I say that I don't like the movie and the problems I got, then real Zack Snyder's fans will come after me and say, this movie's a masterpiece. You only mean because you don't like Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is a visionary masterpiece. There's just guys on the internet, on Twitter, that are genuinely making me mad. I responded to one of their posts, and now I'm getting them like every 5 seconds, like Zack Snyder stands. I'm not a Zack Snyder stan. I like Zack Snyder. I like James Gunn too. There's not a big deal here. Let's get to actually talking about the movie with all that controversy out of the way. And Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver is interesting because it has action. Like, the whole last hour of the movie is just a huge action set piece, and it's entertaining. It's visually, it looks pretty good. The characters actually have more to do this time in the action, because with this huge war going on the planet, you can cut to one character doing one thing and another character doing another thing. I'm not saying that the characters are good, because they're really not, but at least they tried to do something here. The action was entertaining, and what do you go to movies to do? You go to movies to be entertained. And I was entertained while watching the last hour of this movie. And that's kind of just what I was looking for here. Visual, not a masterpiece, but a visual, big battle action movie that was just fun to watch. That's what I got. I was fine with what I got. And so it's kind of interesting. And like I mentioned, Zack Snyder actually kind of tried to do something with the characters. The big problem with the end of the first movie is it sets up all these characters, but then they're just forgotten in the final like 5 minutes, or in the final 20 minutes of the movie. They're just forgotten. They're just thrown away. And it just made no sense whatsoever. And now that you actually have these characters trying to do something here, and it's not good, but at least Zack Snyder tried to do it. Also, near the end of the movie, there's like a little twist that kind of set up a third movie. I'm not excited, but I'm kind of intrigued. You gotta mention, I'm intrigued, not excited. Excited and intrigued are two different things. So I was interested in it. I was interested in the way it ended. The movie's not good. It's not very good. It's fine. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd because it's entertaining, but it's kind of on the same level of the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which I will talk about, where it's fine, but I have so many issues with it. Number one, the characters are not interesting whatsoever. So many characters died, and there's not a single one where I was like, oh no, they died. Oh, no, I was just like, okay. Next scene, please. Because I just wasn't interested in any of them. None of them had anything unique to bring to the table. Like I mentioned, the only reason I liked this movie was because of the action. Slow-mo for Zack Snyder is literally like the worst. There's literally a slow-mo scene of a guy grabbing a water bottle, shoving it under water, picking up, and the scene goes on for like 2 minutes because the guy looks into the distance, looks at his water bottle, looks into the distance, looks at the main character, looks into the distance, looks at the main character, looks at his water bottle, looks into the distance, dunks it in the water, looks at the water bottle, looks into the distance, looks at the main character, looks at the sky for a minute. Oh, digs the water bottle up. Oh, that takes 30 seconds to... Woo! Just so much of that Zack Snyder bullcrap in this movie. And it's very prominent here. There's literally one where a guy takes a hoe and just, like, starts cutting grass. And it's like... Scene goes on for 1.5 minutes. Like, come on now. Come on. The Zack Snyder stuff is very prominent. He's not a great writer. The story is like... There's so many flaws in the movie. But at least Rebel Moon Part 2 is watchable. At least it's watchable, and that's what I was looking for. It's not very high on my list. It's really not. But at least it was a watchable movie. And so for that, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver, I think I'm going to have to give a C+. C+. It was watchable. It was fine. The thing that puts the most sour taste in my mouth about this movie, though, is the fact that the Snyder fans or non-Snyder fans, no matter what your opinion on Zack Snyder's movies are, you're always going after it for them. They're always going after you. So, alright, now we're talking about Abigail. A great movie. A great movie. I had a blast with Abigail. I actually went to see a double feature with this and the next movie I'm going to talk about, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And this one was very, 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 very fun. I had a blast with it. It's very reminiscent of a movie like Violent Night. That's really what I was reminded of throughout watching this movie was, you know, and how Violent Night's just it's a genre film that switches it around. It's like a Die Hard movie, but with Santa Claus. This movie is like a vampire movie, but it's stuck in a house with very likable characters. And it's just, or no, it's a tense thrill. It's a claustrophobic thriller with a vampire. That's what the movie is. And I had an absolute blast with this movie. This is going to stay up very high on my list for a long time. I absolutely adored the movie. The cast here is great. Melissa Barrera as Joey in the movie. She is great. Honestly, Melissa Barrera, the controversy, I'm not really going to get into that, but I'm glad that she was cast in this movie and gave a second chance because she's great. Dan Stevens is easily the best in this movie. He has so much range from Godzilla times Kong, and now this movie. He has so much range, and he's such a good actor. Ashley Wire as Abigail was absolutely phenomenal. She did a fantastic job with what she was. Catherine Newton is great. Kevin Durand is pretty good as well. Angus Cloud, rest in peace. He was pretty good. William Catlett was good. Giancarlo Esposito is in this movie. He is pretty solid as well. So, this is a movie where you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 cast members. That's all the movie is. And you just like every single one of these characters. They all have something unique to them. And they're just fun to hang around with. That's what makes this movie so compelling, is the characters. Then there's also a nice bit of gore and blood and guts. And when Abigail turns into the vampire and goes absolutely crazy, this movie is ridiculously fun. It's my type of movie. I'm a slasher fan. And this was just like so fun. There's so many great kills in the movie that just visually look good. Every time a vampire is in the light, something will just explode. And it's so gory and really cool to watch. And so it's one of those movies that are just a very fun movie that when it comes out on Blu-ray, it's going to be an easy to watch movie that I will watch all the time. I had an absolute blast with the movie. This is a very highly recommend movie for me. It's getting the stamp. It's getting the Zachary Movie Chat highly recommend, or the Zachary Movies Chat must-see badge of honor. That's what this movie is, because it's just everything I wanted from the movie. A blood-filled, gore-filled, fun vampire movie with a great cast. It is just so fun, and I highly recommend the movie. They tried to give Abigail a redemption arc at the end of the movie, which I felt was kind of weird. Like, Abigail just murdered all these people for a game, and now all of a sudden she's helping Melissa Barrera, and now is on Melissa Barrera's side. Why? She just tried to kill her like 20 minutes ago? I felt that was a very weird redemption arc, and I felt like that could be cut out. but still, didn't much take away from the experience because this is just a very fun movie. I cannot emphasize that enough. I've said that so many times in this review that it's a very fun movie. That's the word that you're going into. If you're into slashers, if you're into claustrophobic thrillers, if you're into vampire movies, this is a triple threat. It does everything pretty great with a fantastic cast. I really liked it. I cannot highly recommend this one enough. Go check out Abigail. It's getting an A+ from me. Abigail's getting an A+ from me. Alright, the final movie we're going to talk about in my April catch-up, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This was a movie that's very complicated for me because I was looking forward to it because I wanted to see characters kill Nazis. The cast is very good. This, I think, is Henry Cavill. Out of all the Henry Cavill movies I've seen, this is, I think, the best I've seen him in. He's very fun in this movie. I really liked him in this movie. I thought he was really good. Alan Ritchson, Henry Golding, so many good cast members. They're all pretty good as well. There's a controversy to this because I honestly feel like every character in the movie there's like so many scenes where I was like, wait, who's that? What's his goal to the plot? What's his goal here? And it's kind of a problem with the movie that we'll get on, but I feel like what the cast members are given, they're very good. For the last 30 minutes when they're out killing Nazis, I think it's a very fun movie. It's very fun when Nazis get killed. So it can be fun. I'm struggling to find a lot of positives here because this is a movie that I just feel very weird about. Like, it was fun to watch the last 30 minutes. There were a couple interesting ideas that they did here. The action is fun, the cast is good, but I left the theater confused because I had so many controversial opinions about the movie. Number one, the first, I'd say, hour of the movie is very weird because the movie's about Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson killing Nazis, but the first hour of the movie is more about, what are the cast members' names? They're more about, Bob's, I'm not going to say his last name, is Bob's Osalukmokan? Babs yeah, you know what I mean. And, Eliza Gonzalez. That's what the first hour's mostly about. They're on this island, they're undercover to the Nazis, and that's really what's about. There's some interesting things here. I was interested. I was like, oh, that's interesting. The scene on the train was really tense. I really liked that scene. But, like, I was here to watch Alan Ritchson and Henry Cavill kill Nazis. That's what made that first sequence so endearing. After that first sequence, I was like, I'm gonna have fun with this movie. And then it just kind of slows to a halt for the rest of that hour. Because it's about these two characters undercover on Nazis and trying to set up for the final battle. And it felt like a rarity where we'd see Henry Cavill's character. And it felt like a rarity when we'd see Alan Ritchson. It was just like, oh, where'd they go? Where'd they go? Oh, there they are. Oh, they're finally back. And then they disappear for another 15, 20 minutes. I was like, oh, that's not what I came to this movie to see. And the first hour, like I said, had interesting moments. For a movie that I thought was just supposed to be a big fun action movie, there was a lot of downtime to where there's a whole 15-minute section that I was struggling to keep my eyes open, if we're being completely honest. My eyes were struggling to stay open. Like, the sequence wasn't boring, there were a couple interesting things in there, but that's not what I went to the movie to see. Also, in the Nazi action, like I said, it was very hard to tell what was going on. Like, it's fun to watch, but then there's like a character, and they have a character arc somewhere, and I'm like, wait, who's that character? Because we don't spend enough time with the main characters. We don't know who any of these guys are, because we don't spend time with them. And so you just felt very confused at a couple sequences in the movie as well, and the whole movie just feels like it's like an origin story for a franchise. Like, it feels like you set up all these characters, you finally had that, and it's just one separate mission inside the war. There's nothing resolved. It's just like, oh, okay, and the movie ends. And it feels like we're getting a sequel that's gonna be bigger. That's genuinely what the movie is, and I just felt very confused at why that's the direction they go. Obviously, it's based on a true story. There's only so much they can do, but felt like it could have been handled better. It really did. There are a couple issues with it there as well, so this is a movie flurried with errors and things that I was not the biggest fan of. It's fine. It's a fine movie. I say it's better than Rebel Moon because Rebel Moon, every time I talk about the movie, I get attacked by Zack Snyder fans. So that's a thing. It's going to be higher in my ranking, but it just... I felt very confused by the movie. I just don't know what the thought process was for Guy Ritchie. So for the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, it's also going to get a C+ for me. Alright, so that was a bunch of April movie reviews. Stay tuned for my April ranking. I will wait until I see challengers to include on that ranking. Then I have like Monkey Man and a couple other movies. Stay tuned. My next video will be a martial arts ranking. If you're interested in sports and stuff, go check out my second channel, More ZMC. Did a live stream last night where I talked about the NFL draft and the NBA playoffs. And I'm going to cut out some pieces and put those on my second channel. So go check that one out as well. More ZMC. And thank you guys for clicking on this video. With that said, subscribe, join the Nerd Army. Peace out.